Yo, no, I ain't the type to give up. If I do something, man, I do it till I get what I want. I turn a business out of nothing into something I love.
What's going on, everybody? It's your big homie, the Armchair Operator, and welcome to another video. Now, if you're new to the channel, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you find this video informative, maybe a little entertaining. And if you're coming back to the channel, thank you so much for coming back. I hope that you also find this video informative and maybe a little entertaining. So now, today's video is just going to be a quick video talking about the pros and the cons of double action, single action pistols, featuring my Beretta M9A4, as you see here. I already did a full review on this gun, so if you want to see that, just do a search for it in my channel. I did it like sometime last year if you want an in-depth breakdown. But like I said, the purpose of today's video is just to talk about that particular action type, some of the benefits of it and some of the cons of it. So if you're not sure what a double action, single action gun is, basically when you're talking about the action types, they're really referring to what happens when you squeeze the trigger, at least in this case. So a single action trigger pull is basically one thing is going to happen when you pull the trigger. In the case of something like a hammer fire gun like my Beretta, it's going to, if the hammer is back, it's going to drop the hammer, and that's all it does. So if the hammer is down already and you go to squeeze the trigger, nothing's going to happen. Think of like your average 1911. So that's your basic single action gun. Double action guns, you're going to cock the hammer as you're squeezing the trigger, and when the trigger gets all the way back to its rearward travel, it's going to drop the hammer, and the hammer is going to go forward, hit the firing pin is going to hit the primer, bullet's going to go out the gun. Okay, that's a double action. So basically you have two things that's going on as you're drawing that trigger to the rear. Is cocking the hammer, and when it gets finally all the way to the rear, it's going to let the hammer go, bing, and the projectile is going to go down the gun. Now, some guns have what's called double action, single action, and it can basically operate on both modes. Now, if you look at the Beretta here, we are in a safe and controlled environment, and the firearm is clear. Okay, we're at the gun range. So like, here's a prime example. This particular gun, this also has a decocker too, which is cool. So the hammer is all the way down. If I were to squeeze the trigger all the way to the rear, this hammer is going to go back, and when it hits its rearward travel, it's going to go forward, hitting the firing pin, and it's going to discharge the weapon. Now, it can also operate in single action mode. And essentially what happens is, as you're shooting this gun, even from double action, as the slide goes back, it's going to cock the hammer after each shot, which puts it in single action mode. So that's essentially what I mean by double action slash single action. Guns like your Berettas have that operation, some of your CZ pistols like your P09s, your P07s, the P09 Nocturne, the newest ones. I think the CZ75 is also double action, single action. Your Sig Sauer P226, P229, P220s, the standard ones, they're also double action, single actions. So that's just an example of those particular of guns that have that action type. Now let's talk about some of the pros, and there are some pros. The first pro that, and I think a lot of people don't really talk about, is trigger manipulation. So double action firearms have a heavier trigger pull. So especially for my new shooters, if you really want to learn how to work the trigger really well, it's good to start with a double action firearm. Because you got that heavy trigger travel, if you can draw that trigger to the rear and not really disturb the muzzle of the gun too much, chances are you will be able to translate that to a lighter trigger, such as your striker fires or even your single actions, because it's basically the same. If you can master that, you can master those. Another thing is safety. So a lot of people prefer to conceal carry or even duty carry double action, single action guns, because with that heavier trigger pull, there's far less chance of an ND, which is a negligent discharge, because something hit the trigger or your finger hit the trigger. And this is also very important in high stress situations. So that's why that heavier double action trigger pull is beneficial. Now, it also has a single action mode, and single action triggers are noticeably lighter. So you can operate in both modes if you want to, if you have a double action, single action gun. So with that out of the way, let's put some rounds down range, y'all. So we got a target down here. It's at 5 yards. I got my Beretta loaded up. So let me illustrate to you exactly what the hell I'm talking about. All right, y'all, we got the target loaded up, and I'm going to start this off by running it in double action mode. So the slide is closed. I'm going to chamber around. Going to use the decocker. Okay, so here we go. Long double action trigger pull. There you go. And as you can see, each subsequent shot is single action. All right. I'm going to go for that right target. All right, let's check the target. All right, pretty good. I mean, the Beretta M9A4 is a solid gun. But yeah, like I was saying about that double action trigger pull. So you saw what I meant about that heavy first double action trigger pull. So that's going to bring me into some of the cons of the double action, single action type. You got to basically train yourself for both types, okay? So especially when you have the hammer down, you have to be proficient with the heavy double action trigger pull. And then you got to immediately kind of switch your brain into single action mode, so to speak, and then work that single action trigger, which is a lighter trigger. So the thing about that is, it's very easy to slap that trigger. What I mean by slapping the trigger is kind of like jerking the trigger. So if you're shooting pretty quick, and remember, the more you basically put too much grip pressure, or like if you're pushing with your thumb, it's just easier to mess up if you get the idea. All right, and it's going to throw off your shot placement, long and the short of it. But let's load up. Let's get a fresh target up there. Let's put some more rounds down range. All right, we got the target up, and we're going to put it back to 5 yards. We're going to load up 3 and let them fly. All right, this time, since the slide is locked in the rear, we're going to start with a single action mode. Center mass is where we're going. Center mass is where we're hitting. Can't draw it up any better than that. Now we're going to drop the slide, decock, and we're going to do double action. And we're going to go for the head box just so I can show you the difference between the two. Wasn't chambered. Okay, let's try again. You see that? Let's check the target. So this is basically what I was saying about double action versus single action. That first heavy double action trigger pull threw that shot way to the right, while all the single action rounds are nice tight groups throughout. So that's kind of the difference that I was talking about, and having to learn and work both action types with double action, single action guns. Now, especially if you're talking about the competition circuit, like if you're carrying like a Shadow 2 or something like that, you're going to have to carry that gun down when you're running competition. So that's just something to be mindful of. You're going to have that type of gun for whatever setting. You got to basically train up on both functions of the trigger, for lack of a way of putting it. Now, one of the One of the other benefits of a heavy double action trigger pull, like I said, as far as the training aspect, and it can actually help your trigger control on other types of firearms. So I remember years ago when I first got into this, I was watching a video, I can't remember where it was from, but they were talking about trigger manipulation, and they essentially put like I think it was a dime on the top of the slide, and during dry fire you're going to work that trigger with the purpose of not disturbing that coin. So that's just a good training aspect that you could do safely in your home. You don't need no live ammo or anything like that. So if you really want to practice up on your trigger manipulation, that's a good exercise to do. Frankly, it's something that I still do and need to do more of. All right, so let me just run this last magazine and then we're just going to close out. All right, we loaded up. Let's do it. Outstanding, if I do say so myself. For the most part. Sorry for the brief interruption, y'all. I had some technical issues when I was recording on the range. For whatever reason, my camera decided to crap out on me as I was speaking, you know, trying to show y'all the target. But anyway, long story short, the Beretta M9A4 is a very accurate gun, very good trigger. You know, that double action, single action trigger style does have its pluses and it has its drawbacks just like anything else. One of the pluses that I did forget to mention is that the double action style trigger has its own built-in second strike capability. Basically what that means is sometimes when you go to squeeze the trigger on your gun and that primer, the striker hits the primer, for whatever reason, the round may not go off. It could just be a simple light strike, or maybe there's something wrong with the powder charge, whatever the case may be. But the good thing about that double action, single action trigger is that you could squeeze the trigger again to give you that natural second strike. Granted, it'll be in double action mode at that point because the hammer is down, but you have that built-in second strike capability. Whereas with a striker gun, most striker guns, you have to recock the striker. In order to do that, you basically got to rack the slide again. Now, there are some striker guns that have second strike capability. I believe there's a version of the Canic that has second strike capability. I think it was the TP9DA, something like that. But there are some striker guns that are out there. But for the most part, the double action, single action guns have that feature pretty much built in. But anyway, guys, let me know. I'm sure I didn't hit all of the pluses and the minuses of double action, single action style triggers. I just want to go over a few that I was familiar with in the video. If you have some ideas or some suggestions as to what are some of the pluses and drawbacks in your opinion, definitely let me know down in the comment section. Let's get this discussion popping. This is more so an informational video, so each one teach one. So thank you so much for watching this video. It's your big homie, the armchair operator, and I'm signing out, y'all. Peace.